They've been through so much and they're kind of like numb to life. And then all of a sudden you'll be like looking, you'll interview them, and all of a sudden you'll just see a mom and all, like a tear will start dropping, and then she'll just lose it. And you'll hear stories of like, we've been praying for this. My family's been praying for this for generations. And so I ask usually, I'm like, have you ever seen anyone get set free? No. Imagine walking into a brick kiln and grabbing a couple families and then looking around and the other families, you can't grab them. And they've never seen hope before, and they finally see it. The first couple, that wrecked me the first couple trips.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't get you guys. I'm sorry.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Experience the Truth. Today, we have a special guest, and he works over in the Middle East. You kind of look like you would be working in the Middle East as like a special ops like ranger.
Yeah.
You kind of got that look. Like, you ever seen The Terminalist?
Yes, it's the story of my life.
Yeah. You kind of look like a Navy SEAL. But you have a different line of work, and it's setting slaves free.
Yeah.
In Pakistan. I had no idea any of this was going on, that there is 4.5 million slaves in Pakistan, Christian slaves in Pakistan right now. Had no idea about any of this. And when I tell people, they're always wanting me to clarify because it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. So I want you to just give a little bit of a tidbit of what you do. And then we're going to get into how you got into it and some of the stories that are going on over there.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy thinking about slavery still exists. Okay, there we go.
Make sure they hear you nice and clear.
Okay. I usually am told, hey, you're too loud.
Yeah.
But it's kind of crazy to think about. Right now in the world, there's more slaves than have ever existed before. This isn't a thing of the past. And in one country in particular, Pakistan, and there's plenty of countries that this exists. There's 3.5. What do you...
Scoot a little bit closer.
How close do you want me to get?
I want them on the edge of their seat.
Right here.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. That's like a nice narration. Yeah.
This thing's I think.
They get a 2-for-1 podcast and ASMR.
Yeah. But so there's, up to, it's anywhere between 3.5 million and 4.5 million people are caught in modern day slavery. If you Google it, you'll see, they're indentured servants. They're slaves.
Yeah.
Like they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. They have to make bricks all day. Basically, I tell people, the old Charlton Heston 10 Commandments movie, go watch that. That's the same way that they're making bricks.
It's crazy.
Right now, as we're talking right now, halfway around the world, our brothers and sisters in Christ are making bricks all day, every day, for their whole life. They're never getting out right now. And I didn't know anything about it. And so people are like, this is crazy. I didn't know about it. Neither did I.
Yeah.
Like this is
literally.
Wait, what'd you want to be when you grow up? A modern day abolitionist. I never in a million years thought this was possible or this was even a thing until 3 years ago when I heard about it. And I'm like, what? And I didn't even believe it.
Wow.
Probably like the most people on here, like, that's not really real.
Yeah. Most people, when I tell them a little bit, they're like, well, first, because if you guys don't know, we're taking a missions trip with Brandon in Exodus 51 and this summer. It was not gonna
in the distant future.
In the distant future, we're going over there. And when I tell people, the first thing they're like, dude, you're gonna die. And two, they're like, are you sure about this? They're always looking at me sideways like it doesn't really make much sense.
The people of Pakistan are just beautiful. Like it sounds really weird. The government, the people, like everybody that we work with, they're phenomenal. There just happens to be a system that's in place in a very large industry that hasn't kind of been brought up to where the rest of the world is on most things, right?
Yeah.
And so we've been called into that situation. And I always tell people, I want to be the best partners the country of Pakistan has ever seen. Like it's 98% Muslim. Yeah, we work with Muslims and they're phenomenal. Some of our greatest friends, they're Muslims. And so there's so many things that you hear on the news or see on the news. It's not really like that. Now, I go speak a lot of times and I'm always like, hey, who here has vacationed in Pakistan? I have yet to meet anybody. Yeah. It's like, oh, me.
Taking me and the kids out to Pakistan.
Yeah, we're going on a family vacay, But what I will say is that it's some of the most, people have heard about Kashmir. Some of the most beautiful places in the world are actually in that area. And the people are beautiful. The food. So if everybody listening, if you ever had curry, everything has like spices, but it's also hot. Like I remember Tyler, one of our board members, he was over on his first trip and he's like eating the rice and he's like, the rice is spicy. Like, and they're like, you Americans can't handle our spices. And I'm like, no, we cannot. Like it's a lot of like spices and things like that. But It's some of the most rich culture. The people are beautiful. They're just this little bit of a stain. And so we feel like we've been called to go there to help out in that process. And the government, all the people that every American's like, you can't go over there and do this.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now that the government's been phenomenal. Every time we need something, they've been the most just gracious partners in this. And my goal is to actually uplift the country. My goal isn't to somehow, I'm an American, we're going to take over. That's not it. We've been called to love on those people, and we've done that. We'll continue to do that. And in the process, we've just seen such an amazing, I just see these people and I'm like, this country's going places. And it seems like a country that you've heard about, you're like, they're not going anywhere. I just believe in my heart, like the people that we've interacted with, the graciousness that we've been given, the hospitality. You want to talk about hospitality culture, man, go watch some of the food bloggers and stuff that go over there. And it's like, they're some of the nicest people ever.
Yeah. So how did you get into this in the first place? So like you're from Iowa. And
the great state of Iowa.
The great state of Iowa. And then now you find yourself in the Middle East in Pakistan. And all I knew about Pakistan is that's where SEAL Team 6 went to go get Osama bin Laden. So how do you from Iowa end up finding yourself in Pakistan setting slaves free? It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, it was the family vacation we talked about, you know. No, so I didn't plan on doing this. I graduated college with a finance degree. I wanted to go make a bunch of money. And in the process of things, got called into ministry years down the road. And I'm kind of just, kind of with a lot of people probably that listen to this that feel called to ministry, but you're in the workplace. I kind of had that struggle where I'm like, man, I feel like I've got a call. How is this going to work out with my family? How do you pay the bills? All that type of stuff. And I just remember leaving my corporate career, going into church. And one day God spoke to me and said, basically, I was to become an evangelist. So I'm going to go around the world and I'm going to tell people. Now, the problem was I was like going to places with like 10 people, 15 people, which is fine. I don't care the audience, whether it's 10,000 or 10 people. Like I'm always grateful for opportunities. But in the process, I got invited down to Brazil. And so a mentor of mine was like, hey, you should come to Brazil. I want you to preach overseas. And I said, okay. So I go down to Brazil and I preach at the first church. I have an interpreter and I just crushed it. Like it was one of those things where I was like, I was created for this. I'm going to be the next Billy Graham. I'm the guy. And then we go to the next town. It's a town called Juiz Fora. And no one knows me in this town. Like I'm a nobody. So no one knows me. We get to this church and the church is massive. Like I'm like salivating like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest church I've ever preached in. Like this is going to be amazing. And then I don't get asked to preach. So I'm like, God, why did you bring me to Brazil? If I'm just like feeling sorry for myself. And then so clearly I heard the Holy Spirit say, until you deal with your pride, I can't use you. And I was like it's true. And so I go down front. No one knows me. I haven't preached there, nothing. And I go down front and I was just like, God, I have no idea how to make whatever you've called me to work, but I can't do this. So wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, just help me to see that I want to be obedient to your call. And all of a sudden, a woman, like the doors open, and a middle-aged woman walks through the doors, and she like points at me. And I'm married, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? Kind of thing. And she comes forward. We get an interpreter over, and she said, I had a vision this morning. She doesn't even go to church at this church. She goes, I had a vision this morning, and God told me to come to Nariha, Metodista, and Juiz for the man in my vision would be here. It's you. I've got a few things I need to tell you. And I was kind of like, okay, is this real? Is it not? Type of thing. And, people, if you're in the church world, people are like, I've got a word for you. Yeah. Like, kind of like, okay. Or like, there's a young guy and it's like, I'm supposed to marry you. And you're like, okay, I'm sure you have a word, buddy. Yeah. And so I'm just listening. And she said, the first thing I'm here to tell you is that you worry too much about money. And I'm like, well, this isn't starting off very well. Like, this isn't a fun vision. And she goes, you somehow think that, and I was so focused on money in my career before. She goes, you don't think that the dreams that God puts on your heart, you don't think that he's going to help you with those dreams? You don't think that, and she just started laying into me this idea that things that I choose and what I do because of money. And she goes, God is going to take care of it. If it's God's thing, he's going to take care of you. Yeah. So I was like, okay. And she said, the second thing I'm here to tell you is you don't spend enough time with God. And
it's one after the other.
I didn't say this out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, lady, I write sermons all the time. Come on. And she looks at me. I didn't say it out loud. It was in my head. I said that. It's nice flies back.
Nice flies.
Yeah, man. But I thought that, and she goes, and I know you write sermons all the time. And I was like, what? And she said, in my vision, I saw you in your office. And she said, and she explained my entire office at my house, the bookshelf, all this type of stuff. Like it was crazy, the details of it. She goes, I saw you writing a sermon. She goes, you're good, but you spend time with God for everybody else. You don't have a relationship with him. And I'm like, okay. So the third thing I'm supposed to tell you is he's called you to Asia. He's going to use you to set his people free. Through you, a region of the world is going to change. He's given you a key to unlock doors that no one else can unlock. And I'm sitting here going, we got to the good part. Yeah. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, what's the country? She goes, I don't know. I was like, well, what's the key?
Like, are you kidding me?
And she goes, I don't know. That's all I'm supposed to tell you. And she walks out the door. And I'm like, what the heck? Like,
yeah, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah. Like, okay, I've got a key.
Yeah.
And I'm going to Asia. I like Asian food. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody in Asia. So then the next day comes around, a younger lady walks up to me. And again, I don't preach in the church, so no one knows who I am again. And this young lady, I've got, tattoo on my right arm that goes up my right arm. And she's like looking at my arm. And I'm like, hey, lady, how's it going? And she spoke English and she goes, is your name Brandon? And I was like, yeah. And then I was kind of like, what, did you have a vision or something? She goes, no, but God spoke to me this morning and told me to come to Origen Metodista. There'd be a man with a tattoo up his right arm. His name's Brandon. You have a few things you need to tell him. And I go,
what in the world?
What are you supposed to tell me?
Yeah.
She goes, why are you so worried about money?
Jeez.
And word for word, everything the lady the day before said, she said everything. The only thing at the end she added, she goes, the country might seem dangerous. Don't worry. The country where he calls you, he's going to protect you, and blah, blah, and she added all this stuff. And I said, well, what's the country? She's like, I don't know. I was like, what's the key? I don't know. That's all I'm supposed to tell you. And she left. Yeah. That was in August of 2021. And in October of 2021, that church that had never heard me preach invites me back down, and I do a youth conference down there. Mm-hmm. Some of that gets taped and put on like Facebook or something like that. And then fast forward a little bit, we watch, my family and I watch The Chosen. Mm-hmm. We're saved. So we watch The Chosen. And they did like a Christmas special, and you're in ministry. And so once you get in ministry, you do missions, there'll always be people like, hey, I have an orphanage. I'm in the Congo. Please send me money and whatever. And so this guy had written me and was like, Shalom, man of God. And I was like, what? Okay. Hey, dude. And then, but all I would hear was Shalom, man of God. Yeah. And so we go to this Chosen thing in the theaters, and they define the word Shalom. And all of a sudden I hear the name of the person that wrote me. And I'm like, that's so weird. So I told my wife, I said, and this is probably like, I don't even know, December of 21-ish. My wife knows the details better, but it was later that same year. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to write this guy. So I get home, get on my computer, and get on Messenger. And the person that runs everything for us over there now had written me. And he said, hey, we believe that we were told by God to wait. And we've been waiting for a couple of years. And he said he would send us somebody. We saw a sermon that you did in Brazil. Popped up on our Facebook, and God said, that's the one you've been waiting for. Contact him. He's going to come over here. And so could we get on a call? So I'm like, sure. Now I'm an evangelist, not making it at the time. Yeah. Like my wife, I still remember she like come down to the office, and she's always been a stay-at-home mom, because I had a good career before. And she's like, are we good? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're great. And then she'd leave, and I'm like, God, please, we're not good. It reminds me of like, we talked about last night where like David in the Psalms, where David's like, God, I can do anything. You're so powerful. In the next Psalm, it's like, God, why have you forgotten me? Yeah. Like, that's what I felt like.
It's just all over the place.
So anyway, so I get on this phone call with Simon, who runs everything for us over there. And I said, hey, so what's the deal? Like, what do you do? And he's like, well, we work with slaves. And I was like, what do you mean? Slaves? Because everybody in America's like, hey, I know this is a dumb question. I don't want to offend you. But I was like, I've already asked all the dumb questions. And he's like, we work with slaves. And I was like, what do you mean by slaves? And he goes, does slave mean something different in your country? And I was like, okay, so slaves.
Got it.
And at that time, if I would have came to your church, if I would have come to Bethel's Rock to preach, I was preaching. And I don't know why I was obsessed with Exodus, the book of Exodus. Moses, the burning bush, parting of the red, like everything Exodus. I was watching the Charlton Heston movie. Like I was obsessed for some reason. I was just like, I can't get enough of this storyline for some reason. So he goes, are you familiar with Exodus? And I said, I'm familiar. And he goes, Well, like that's what happens. There's roughly, 3.5 to 4.5 million Christian slaves, and they make bricks like that. And I'm like, what? And he goes, they get beaten, they get, taken advantage of, and all the ways that you think girls and boys could get taken advantage of. They get killed. Just the most horrific stories you can think of. And I'm sitting there, and there's a line in a Hillsong song that says, "Break my heart for what breaks yours." And it was almost like God was like, and downloaded a love for a people in a country that I'd never been to and never wanted to go to. I had no plans.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I never wanted to go to Pakistan.
Yeah.
I never, it wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
And I'm like starting, so this guy is sending me these pictures, and I'm seeing these people, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why is my heart breaking for these people? And so then I made the mistake, whatever, of saying, can you buy them? Why? And I'm like sitting there going, what a dumb question. Why
what did I just say?
Why? No, I don't want to buy a slave. And he's like, yes, you can. And I said, how much does a person cost? And he's like, roughly $250. And I was like, $250 and I can buy a human being? He goes, roughly, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I don't suggest doing this because, we were joking before. It's like, you inherited money from this prince. Send $10,000 over. I just started sending him money. I wasn't making any money.
So crazy.
I just started sending him money. And he goes, I want you to think about taking a trip here. And I said, okay, when do you think? He goes, April. So April of 2022. He's like, would you come in April? And I was like, I'll pray about it. So I go talk to my wife. And I said, hey, this is going to sound crazy, but I think I'm supposed to go to Pakistan. What do you think about that? She goes, let me pray about it. And she comes back, I don't know, it was the next day or a couple days later. She's like, I have more peace about Pakistan than I do any other country. And my mind is like, wow, like, God, thank you for bringing me her, obviously, because this is aligning with wherever you're calling me to go. And obviously, if my wife's not on board, that's a hard sell for a family. Hey, I feel called to go to the Middle East. The other part I was thinking is, does she have life insurance on me? I don't know about. Like
that was an easy yes.
Yeah, like she's really excited about me going. Like, no, I want you to go. You should go tomorrow. And I'm thinking, like, lady,
1 second.
Okay, and so I'm sitting here going, everybody in my life, and this, this for people that are listening, everybody in my life other than my wife was saying you're dumb. They didn't mean it in a bad way. They cared about me, and they're like, hey, you like, I had a friend that's like, you gave up the corporate career, you gave up this, and like, you have so many giftings, and you were going, like,
yeah, why would you throw it away?
Hey, are you sure? And I had one friend that I still meet with, graduated high school with him, and I remember going to the movie theaters with him. And I was like, hey man, I think I'm going to do this. And he's like, you can't go. And he was just so concerned. Everybody in a loving way. And this is for people that are trying to struggle with the same types of things. They didn't mean anything wrong by it, but I was given a fresh new perspective. Something I was given from God changed everything. And so I had this guy that I had connected with from Tulsa, and he was an evangelist that went crazy places. And so I'm like, he's the only one that I could. So my wife's on board. Yeah. I just need one other person that's like, hey, kind of thing. So I called him and I said, hey, and I'm telling him the same story that I'm telling you. And he goes, I'm going to ask you. And at that time too, when I had left my church job to become an evangelist and all that stuff, I'm applying for like other jobs and I'm getting denied, like multiple levels below where I left. And I'm like laughing, getting these denials, and I was like, God's like, you're not going to do anything else except this. So I ended up calling this guy and telling him all this stuff. And then I was just like, what do you think about this? And he goes, I'm going to ask you a question, but don't answer this question until you know the answer. I go, okay, what? And he goes, no, I'm serious. This is an important question. I'm like, okay. And he goes, you've heard people say, make Jesus the Lord of your life. Yeah. Make him the Lord of your finances, making all that stuff. And he just looks, he's on the phone with me and he just says, are you willing to die for him or not? What?
Yeah. Jeez.
I've never been asked that. And I just sat there and I was like, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this. There's nothing else I can do is what I felt like. I felt like Jonah. I don't get any other choice. It's like, I'm not being like pulled. God's pushing me there. And I'm sitting there going, and I just told him, I said, yeah, I think I am. He goes, okay, good. Don't worry. He's going to protect you. And so I buy a plane ticket and a church that I would go preach at, and I don't have a speaking fee. I've never done that. Nothing against people that do, but I just felt like I would always just tell churches, hey, pray about it, and whatever God puts on your heart type of thing. So this church in and around the area that I grew up in, the pastor's like, hey, this is going to sound really weird, but like, I feel like, are you going on a trip? Like, I kind of felt the Holy Spirit tell me that. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, where are you going? And I was like, I can't tell you. And he's like, okay. And he's like, oh, I was thinking I was supposed to like take up an offering for you. So imagine now at this point, I've got 11,000 blah, blah, blah on my credit card.
Yeah.
Right, that I sent over.
Crazy.
I had reached out to a guy that owns a car dealership. I said, hey, when I get back, I'm going to need to sell my truck. And he's like, don't worry. Like, I'll take care of you. And I was like, okay. And so the whole time leading up to this trip, you know, you got a month and a half and the devil starts working on you. Like, you're never going to make it. You can't go. What makes you think all this type of stuff. And so I'm like, God, I need a word. God, will you speak to me? And all I heard from God the entire time was, trust me. And I was like, no, but like, give me a vision.
Lay out the fleece.
Yes. And he's like, trust me. Well, I'm looking at a credit card bill that I can't pay. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. I got 3 kids. I quit my corporate career. Our savings account is doing this. And I'm hearing, trust me. It's really hard to trust you when everything I see doesn't line up. So anyways, a couple days before I was going to go over there, I would be like working out at the gym. And I just remember everybody probably thinks I'm having a midlife crisis. I'd be crying. And like, but it's like I was crying for these people. And so a couple days before I go, this pastor comes and he gives me an envelope. And he said, I got up in front of the church and I just said, Brandon's going somewhere. I can't tell you what he's doing. Can't tell you where he's going. I just know that he's going to be saving people. And if there's a number that pops in your head, will you write it down and we're going to give him everything for his trip? And I was expecting a couple $100. So he hands me the envelope and I'm just like, God, thank you for the couple, like, just thank you for this amount. Like, we'll figure it out, whatever. And I opened up the check and it was like 11,000, like it wasn't exact, but it was like the credit card bill. And it was just, God was like, trust me. And so I'm like, okay. So I get on the plane by myself. I fly to Qatar. I land in Qatar. And if anybody listening has been there, it's like the most beautiful airport. There's gold stores, there's Maseratis. And I was like, God has called me to the Middle East. This is amazing. I love it. And I look up on the screen. All of a sudden, you see a BBC alert. The Prime Minister of Pakistan has been kicked out of office. And I get an alert from my phone. Hey, don't go to Pakistan. All this stuff because I'd registered through this thing. And I'm like sitting there going, what?
Wait.
Like, the day I'm supposed to land, you're telling me the Prime Minister got kicked out of office.
It's insane.
And so their country's on like high alert. They've got military, like, there's just a lot of stuff going on. And so I'm sitting here going, like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm almost there. I'm just going to go. This doesn't seem that bad anyways. So I get on the plane. I land in Pakistan. And you land at Lahore Airport. And you're like, oh, this is much different than the Doha Airport. And I'm a foot taller than everybody else. I don't know who I'm like. I've met this guy on the phone. I've talked to him a couple times. And I just remember having my backpack. And I like shrunk down because I'm like, I'm the only white person in the entire airport. I'm a foot taller. I like grew out my beard. I've got like hunting heat gear to cover my tattoos. I'm wearing like boots, jeans, and like a hunting shirt with a backwards cap. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I'm shrinking down like behind these like old ladies. And I'm just like, please, let's let me get through the airport. I don't know how it's going to happen. I wasn't nervous or anything. I was just like, this is so weird. I'm from Iowa.
Yeah.
Like,
just sticking out.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I promise this is a true story. All of a sudden I hear, you, what are you doing here? And I was like, huh? Me? Like, kind of like, I joke around a lot, but I was like, me? And of course it's me.
Yeah.
So he comes over to me. He's got, big beard. He's got an AK-47 on. He's like, what are you doing in our country? And everybody's just kind of like on high, like, hey, we want to make sure, like this prime, like just a lot of political stuff going on. What are you doing in our country? I was like, oh, I'm here to visit my friend. Who is your friend? And I was like, Simon. Where did you meet Simon? And I was like, Facebook? And I'm like, oh no, this is so bad. Like it sounds
terrible. Yeah.
And he's like, what city are you going to? And I just said the city name and I couldn't even say it, type of thing. And he goes, I'm going to ask you a question. Do not lie to me. And I was like, okay. And he goes, are you here to overthrow our government? And I'm like, what? This escalated so quickly.
Like, geez.
Like this is crazy. Like, no, I'm not here to overthrow government. And he starts laying into me. And all of a sudden there's like 4 or 5 guys with AKs, long beard, like just like surrounding me. And he's going at it like again and again. And finally he goes, I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you here to overthrow our government? Now, this felt like an eternity as I was thinking this. It probably lasted 10 seconds. And I just thought this thought. For a long time, especially in ministry or in my business career, you see people and you like see the success that someone has, and we try to emulate who they are. Mm-hmm. We basically become a version of ourselves that we were never designed to do. So it's kind of like a pose that we have, right? Mm-hmm. So in that, and I'm like, I just don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't want to have to be somebody else. I just want to be God, who you created me to be. That's like the thought that was running through my mind. So I was like, I've read the books, I've seen the documentaries, I've seen the movies, and it's like, and literally like they're all waiting for my response. And it was just like running through my head. But I was like, I could fall on my knees and like, Lord, blah, blah, blah. And maybe an angel shows up, maybe. And then the other thought was like, I'm going to get arrested. Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Like, maybe I'm supposed to write some letters and like all this. It was like so quick. It felt like an eternity. It was probably 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. And they're just waiting. And so, but I was like, all right, God, if this is truly you, I get to be me. And I'm a lot like Chris Pratt, like Guardians of the Galaxy. So I need to be serious, probably more. But I was like, all right, God, if this is truly you, I don't have to be anybody else because you called me. Mm-hmm. So I looked, this is not a political endorsement. This is just what I said. I looked at him and I said, no, I'm not here to overthrow your government. I said, why would I help Joe Biden overthrow your government? I don't think he's a good president at all. And he goes, what did you say? And I'm thinking he's like, gonna not like, of course, what I said. And I said, listen, man, I voted for Trump. And they all looked at each other and they go, we don't like Joe Biden either. And I'm like, what? They're like, we love Trump. And I was like, you love Trump? And I'm thinking politically, this is not what I would have assumed like would have been the case. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, why? It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with oil being cheaper and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. People eat there. Mm-hmm. Things are cheaper there. And so after, they're all laughing and he goes, you're going to love Pakistan. Enjoy your time here. Go, go, go. And I leave the airport. I get into a white van with 10 guys. One of them speaks English. The rest of them don't. They have AK-47s. We had a bag of cash.
Just another Wednesday.
Yeah. And this is typical Iowa stuff. Yeah. Maybe not Minnesota, but it's Iowa stuff. And we are driving into the middle of nowhere. And when I say the middle of nowhere, think of nowhere and go further. Jeez. And at this point, people are like, are you not nervous? I've learned some giftings that I have. I don't get as nervous as I thought I would. But this is the first time where I was like, not like afraid, but I was kind of like, what the heck am I doing here? Because I can't talk to anybody really. Yeah. We're in this van. All I see is clanking around old AK. I don't even know if there's bullets in them, like type of thing. And I just remember looking out the window and being like, bridge, stream. And so now the team is like, Brother Brandon has such a good memory. Well, I was sitting there going, bro, if you try to sell me to the Taliban, I will punch you in your face and I will run back to wherever we came. Like, I was just trying to memorize these places. Yeah. We ended up stopping. There's no lights and there's like those little picnic tables, like sets that you see that are plastic cheap things. There's like one of them in the middle of the road and there's like a couple buildings on the other side and we're in the middle of nowhere. No lights or anything except one little light. And it kind of reminded me of like an old Western where it's like, and like a tumbleweed kind of like, that's like the visual that I saw. Mm-hmm. And they get out of the vehicle and like, stay here. And I'm like, okay, we're good. We do the first slave deal. We're buying people. And I'm sitting here, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is so, no one's going to believe this. Like, no one's going to believe this. And we do get the deal done. And the slave owner comes up to me and he's like, I just remember him. So I joke now. I said, sometimes it's okay if you're lying, as long as you're lying for the Lord. And I just remember him being like, through an interpreter, he's like, does your government know that you're here? And I was like, oh yeah. So they're like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I said, and I just randomly was like, there's a drone above me right now. Cause I'm thinking, why are you asking if my government knows I'm here?
Yeah, literally.
That's weird. So I was like, yeah, there's a drone above me. And so the interpreter's like, blah, 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 blah. And all the guys are like, and I was like, hey, tell them it's too high up. They won't be able to see it. And so they were like, oh, okay. The kind of thing. They shake my hand. We get in the van. Then our team's like, you have a drone? I was like, no, but no one needs to know about that. And that kind of kickstart, we can get into other stuff. We have a church, we have a school. That first year, I just remember being like, if we could get 100 people out of slavery, like that would be crazy. And in 2022, it was 303 people. 2023 was 1,333. Last year was 5,902. This year it's already over 3,500. And, we're at, I think, as of today, the 20th of June in 25 were, I think it's 11,413 people. Could have never imagined that this would increase, that this would become a life's work. Like from that first trip and going, God, I have no idea how this is going to work.
From a Facebook message.
Yeah.
Just is so crazy. And then all of that, 11,000 slaves later, that's crazy obedience and just stepping out and just seeing the hand of God on it. I'd like to know more. And I've heard a lot of these stories, but they're still, they blow me away. Just understanding kind of the environment like around there. Like you said, they're not indentured servants, they're slaves. Do you want to maybe like let the audience know how do they even get into this position, and then maybe share some of the stories that kind of highlight some of the conditions that these people are in?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it. And so just people we just don't have the perspective. So 99.99999. I mean, we're the leader in this space. And so we've only encountered 2 people that have ever known freedom. There are 2 families. Every other family, 99.99% of them are born into it.
That's insane.
They're 4th, 5th generation slaves. In reality, what it is there's a debt that's associated with their family. It's generational bondage. So I have a debt, and let's say it's $1,000 for my family. I have so many kids, and I have to make anywhere between 1,500 and 2,500 bricks every single day in 120 degree heat, 70% humidity. It doesn't matter the weather. I have to make these bricks. And then my kids have to make the bricks, and then their kids have to make, and you're never going to pay this off. You might be given a scoop of rice during the day. You're working anywhere between, if you have a big family that can figure it out, 10 hours up to 18 hours a day, every single day, 7 days a week, every day. You're never going to get out. You don't even, most of the time, you can't read, you can't write. You don't even know what your dad is. So how could you even get out? By the way, you might, as a family of 7, you might that day, between all of you working for 14 hours each, maybe you bring in $1.
Jeez.
And but you stay at my brick kiln. So you have to rent the place that you're at. And I brought you that scoop of rice. And if you want food, you have to buy it from me anyways. You will never get out of debt, ever. So because you're a Christian, they can own you. The Muslims can't own other Muslims. And so I'm like this American that's going to figure everything out. I remember on the first trip, I met this slave. And I said, why don't you convert to being a Muslim? And then when you get out, just go back. And he said, I would never do that to God. So you want to talk about a people that have the worst imaginable conditions and have more faith in who God is and what he can do? It like blows your mind. Like, it's crazy, right? The conditions are horrible. The moment you can walk, you're out there flipping bricks. And basically think of it, it's like if you've seen the old 10 Commandments movie, mud stomping with your feet, turning the mud and taking it. Like, that's the way they still do the bricks. And it's one of the largest industries. There's roughly 20,000 brick kilns just in Pakistan. I mean, if you look at the 1040 window, brick making is a big deal. And so, you want to talk about a people that love God, even though they can't read, they can't write, but they know who he is and they believe in who he is more than I do. And so, for example, the 2 families that we've met, so one of the families we talked to him, the grandpa of the family got sick, went to the hospital, passed away. So he has some debt associated with his hospital stay. So the eldest son inherits, good or bad. Well, in this case, he inherited a little bit of debt from a hospital stay. He couldn't pay it. So a slave owner comes in and goes, hey, hospital, does anybody owe you any money? Actually, yeah, this family does. Here's the money. Don't worry, they can pay it off from me. That family is now in slavery forever. So that's kind of when you talk about the conditions, the water that they drink. I mean, it's like the most putrid looking lake water. The food. I mean, if you see somebody in their 60s and 70s or older in slavery, like, it's like they've had a rough life. Yeah. But imagine this. This is the other part that's kind of crazy. So some people have said, well, why do they even get married and have kids? They don't know what it's like to be free.
That's crazy.
Like, so in America, we're like, well, I just wouldn't have kids. I wouldn't, whatever. You don't know what freedom is. So that would be like saying, hey, the children of Egypt, like the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt for those hundreds of years, why did they have families? They don't, like, that's just their life.
It's just life, yeah.
So these people have kids, they do whatever, and that's just all they know. And so I remember one time we talked about this last night, we freed a family. They went back to brick making. They didn't even understand that, like, no, you're free. it wasn't even a thought process because no one's been free for generations upon generations. Sometimes they'll trade them to other brick kilns, but for generations, imagine for 4 generations, this family has known a mile by mile stretch of dirt. That's it.
That's insane.
They don't know what things are. Like there's no education. So like it'd be like I just am like, man, it'd be crazy to see inside their head like how they think. Like, do you know about other countries? Do you know, like they don't go to school. They make bricks every day. So if you've never been taught anything, they'll hear hearsay every once in a while, but there's really like that's all you know. So them raising their families, they don't know any different. And so they raise their families in this and it just perpetually continues.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And there's, some of the stories that you've told me of just like these conditions. It's so hard to even imagine that someone's daily life. Like I remember listening to a podcast by Joe Rogan. He had a North Korean refugee that came on, and she was just literally spent like a couple hours just talking about what life was like over there. And you get done listening and you're like, what am I even doing? Like, this is insane. Or if you complain about, your life, you're like, oh my goodness. And when you tell me stories from Pakistan, that's literally what it feels like. It's like these people like go through, and he hasn't even, if you like scratch the surface of, I don't even know what you can share here for some of the stories and conditions that these people are put through. You've told me that they're not even, they're treated literally like cattle. Like they're not even people. Like when they're owned, it's human rights is like, what's that? Like they're not seen as people.
Yeah. So if we go through kind of the overall process of freeing someone, that's, a big question that people ask, like, what does this logistically look like? Right.
Yeah.
So legally, so we have a great legal team over there. We go through the legal system. They have laws and all that type of stuff. So we find let's say, we have a family and we figure out the debt. On average, it's about $250. Sometimes it's a little cheaper. But we buy them out in family units. And so, you look at like, let's say a family of 7. So we will buy an entire, cause I'm like, I'm not going to free like 4 people and then not get, like an uncle that's with them or whatever. Or on the flip side, it's like, we've encountered, hey, let's do 2 families this week or, whatever. And then we find out there's 3 brothers. Well, we need to get the other brother and his family.
Behind,
So, but we buy out full family units. And then what we do as part of the process is we provide housing and food for 6 months for everybody. And that's $50 per person roughly. So think of a rough number just to kind of gauge. It's about $300. Purchases someone's life and then sets them up with housing and food for 6 months. So $300. So family 7, you're looking at $2,100 roughly. So what we do is we go to the brick kiln. They legally, if we satisfy the debt that's against the family, they legally have to let them go. Our legal team we have all this documentation. It's in Urdu, but it's documentation. Then I explain it to people. Imagine a car title. So if you're going to someone's house to buy their car from them, they have the car title. You sign it over and you see what it is. This is Honda Civic and blah, blah, blah. Well, here this is the Massey family and blah, blah, blah. It lists the same thing. It gets signed by both them and we satisfy the debt, signatures. We take that document, and this is why there's other people that are saying they're doing this. I don't know, right? But I know from our standpoint, we then at that point, we own the slaves. I own them. They're still slaves though. So to complete the process, and part of what's really important to us that God has kind of guided us, and we have an amazing team over there that's figured this out because we want to do things the right way. I mean, we're dealing with lives here.
Yeah, literally.
And there's just, I won't go into specifics. There's just a lot of crazy stuff that happens when people are owned, the human trafficking, the sexual, like there's just a lot of stuff. So we want to be very careful and everything that we can do to protect these families, we're going to do. And so we take the paperwork right away. We go to whatever municipality is closest by, and we register this formula documentation that they're free. We register that through the government. It gets notarized. I mean, everything's like in record with the government. And at that point, they get issued Pakistani identification numbers. So when people are like, well, how do they have rights now? They weren't citizens before. They were property. It's like owning a cow. Jeez. Now they have a Pakistani identification number, which means the brick kiln owner's not coming. If the brick kiln owner comes and threatens them, well, they have laws in Pakistan. You can't do that. So they become citizens. Now, they're Christians. It's a 98% Muslim nation. So I'm not saying life's all peachy at that point, but in terms of going back in slavery, no one's going back in.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of misconceptions around this. But so to finish kind of the process. So then in the beginning, we were like, okay, well, we have a church. So you're going to go to our church and we're going to find housing around our church and we're going to prepay it for 6 months. Typically, they only need about a month or two. These are the hardest working people you ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
Like every other job that they get is like it's fine. They can also making bricks. That's a huge industry there and they're good at it. Right. So you can become day laborers and do that, but you get paid every day.
Yeah.
You have rights. You can't be beaten, like all that type of stuff. So so anyways, we find jobs, all that type of stuff. We get them connected to a church because community over there is everything. And then kids going to school, all that type of stuff. Typically it takes about a month or two to get that done. And then the rest, the 4 months they can save and whatever. Well, our church fills up.
Yeah, no kidding.
After the first year, and then we're into the second year, we're like, we got to figure something else out. And so we kind of built up a church partnership network. And so, for example, because, and again, I'm not here to say, oh, look at churches. No, here's what, hey, Pastor Massey, how many people go to your church? 20 people. Man, you're doing such a great job. So here's the deal though. Next weekend, there's gonna be 120 people that go to church. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, so we've rented houses because in the beginning, everybody had our numbers. So we're constantly getting calls. I'm like, this isn't sustainable anymore. And so now we have a pastor network. The pastors are really the go-to people. And the pastors have ability to contact us. At 11,413 people, no one's ever asked for money. We've never had anybody have an issue where it didn't work out. We've had a couple like little things that, that we've dealt with in terms of like, scenarios I won't get into, but just outside of just these people aren't treated very well type of thing. But the church, we've never had pastors going, hey, this isn't working out. No, it's never happened. They've never asked for like, now, granted, at some point, maybe somebody will need something, and that's fine. And we're going to be the line of defense, to make sure they don't go to a loan shark type of person and borrow money or something like that. But in reality, I mean, when you talk about over 11,000 people, we've never had an issue. And so, because at the end of the day, we started doing check-ins, like how can we make this process better? Right. They're technically our customer. We're here to serve you guys. So we will meet with them after the fact. They've been freed for a few months or 6 months, or maybe it's been a year, and we'll kind of do a check-in. We'll do a pop-in. Hey, such and such family, how are things going? Me and my team will be there. I'm like, let's jot down some notes. How can we make this better? And everybody's like, there's nothing. Like, and you're kind of like, okay, like, what do you got for us?
Yeah.
We would never get any feedback because they're just so grateful, right? Like when I told the guys last night, I said, it's like a drug. You get a walk. I'll go back to this other story, but when you walk into a brick kiln, they're like, what's the, people are always like, what's the saddest part? The saddest part isn't the people in slavery. That's horrible. I hate it. Imagine walking into a brick kiln and grabbing a couple families and then looking around and the other families, you can't grab them.
Yeah.
And they've never seen hope before. And they finally see it. The first couple, that wrecked me the first couple trips.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't get you guys. I'm sorry. And so it gets you super emotional. And so it gets very overwhelming really quick.
Yeah.
And you just have to be like, all right, I'm here for you. I can get you. Yeah. And so we're doing these check-ins and I'm like, how can I make this better for you guys? Right. Because you guys are who I'm here to serve. And literally we finally had this guy goes, I have something. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's get ready. What do we have? And he goes, you gave us 6 months of housing and food. We only needed 1 or 2 months. You don't need to give us that much money. Use that money and help someone else. And I'm like, well, we used to, when we first got started, we did 3 months. Then we're like, let's give them 6 months because that feels better. And then if we meet somebody that's a widow, or like we've encountered grandmas that have a bunch of grandkids, their sons died, their daughter-in-laws died, and it's this 70-year-old woman with 7 or 8 kids hanging on by a thread. She dies. Good luck. I don't even know what happens to those kids at that point.
Yeah, geez.
So if we encounter a situation like that, you get a year. Housing and food for a year.
Yeah.
So, but go back to kind of the hope piece. Hope is such a thing that like, it's not ethereal. I've seen it hit people's eyes. So when you're there and you're going to experience it, It's kind of crazy. You take groups and people there the first time and they're just like, I don't even know what to ask them or whatever. And I can tell you almost every time, like, what do you want to tell people back in America? And they're like, they should visit. They say the same types of things and then stuff. But I was like, so what are your dreams? And every time I want our kids to get an education. And all of the kids that are there, they're like, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be, and they just want to serve, and they just want to, like, they're just such good people, compared to what they've been through. Yeah. But you're there, and it's like the first time you see hope, they've been through so much, and they're kind of like numb to life. And then all of a sudden you'll be like looking, you'll interview them, and all of a sudden you'll just see a mom, and like a tear will start dropping, and then she'll just lose it. And you'll hear stories of like, we've been praying for this. My family's been praying for this for generations. And so I ask usually, I'm like, have you ever seen anyone get set free? No.
Jeez. Have
you heard about it? We've heard sometimes it happens with you guys. And I was like, so no one else, and every brick, like, has anybody else been here? This last trip, they were like, there's foreigners that come here and they record us and then they never show back up.
Jeez.
And I'm like, so you've got a system now that's using these people? Like, that's infuriating.
Yeah.
And so then they go, now a lot of times the brick kiln owners will push the people away. They don't even want them to see us freeing them. They don't want hope injected into there, because then anything's possible type of thing.
That's so crazy. So not only are there's people that their brick kiln owners are taking advantage of and exploiting them for day labor. Then you got foreigners that'll come in and exploit them for sympathy and pity to get money that never goes to them.
100%.
Oh man, that's
infuriating.
Yeah, that is frustrating. I'm trying to think what else we should talk about. I think some of the cool things is what we've talked about is like even the miracles that you see at those. You just want to share maybe a couple of those for yeah.
So kind of like some of the cool things that we get to do. So you want to talk about, first of all, I'm not a big deal. I don't have some special connection to God. Like, I'm just normal guy that's in Minnesota right now, And part of what we do, so we go to the brick kilns, and what we'll do is we'll do services at the brick kilns.
Yeah.
There's tons of churches that want us to speak there, and we could fill up huge state, like all that stuff. And people that do that, there's nothing wrong with that. But we felt very clearly as an organization, as a board, we've talked about this, about mission creep, and the events get bigger and all that type of stuff. And I was like, but we're not called. I have nothing against the churches there, but I don't want to go there and preach at 20 churches. We're called to the slaves. And so kind of our focus on what we do is we go into the brick kiln and hold services at the brick kiln. So the place of despair, of hopelessness, we want to actually bring hope into that place. So God made it, he was very specific when he gave me this mission. It was, just praying and get like, God, what is this about? He said, I'm going to make you a conduit for my resources into the darkest places of the world. And so part of me was like, a conduit goes both ways. So if I take resources there, what am I supposed to bring back? And he said, you're supposed to bring back a heart to a dead church. And so in reality, what we're supposed to do is to bring hope and to really carry the gospel. And that's what missionaries do, right? I get that. So we hold these services in the brick kilns legally. If I want to hold a service, I can hold a service. And so we set up a service. And so imagine all these slaves come in and we get to preach to the slaves. And the only way that I can describe this, that people, if you've read scripture, been in the church for any amount of time, there's the woman with the issue of blood. And Jesus is pushing through the crowd, and everybody's like trying to get, imagine Jesus walking through. Everybody's like, I want to be next to him. Like, I get it. But all of a sudden, this woman that was the castaway that had all this shame, all this guilt, touches the hem of his garment, and Jesus goes, who touched me? And he doesn't say, I have faith that he literally said, your faith did this. And so I tell people, they're like, why did all these miracles happen? I said, I don't know. Like, my prayers are the same as yours. I'm not special. I'm not anything. But imagine there's 300 people with the same faith as that woman with the issue of blood. So we've literally I've seen, we told the story last night of the blind woman. She's like in her 70s. She's blind since she was a little girl. I was just like, God, I don't even know. Could you do this? And didn't even have any faith. And she, after like 9 times praying for her, she is full sight. Like, it's crazy. We've seen tumors just like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, what?
Yeah, did that just happen?
What? Like, we talked about people, like the story last night that we shared with the person that didn't have a knee. So their leg is like floppy, and God, there's literally a new knee. Like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have no concept of what this is. Like, we've seen, so any miracle that you can think of, like we've seen, the only thing, I haven't seen a resurrection. When I joked last night, I was like, God, I want to see a resurrection. Just, please don't let it be me. And it has nothing to do with us. Like their faith. I remember the first trip, a guy came up to me and he had half a leg, and I'm just like burnout on my first trip. It's a lot. And I remember this guy coming up to me on a crutch, and he says, will you pray that I'll get a leg? And I'm like, I don't, what? I don't have what you need. I just remember thinking like, I don't have what you guys need. I just felt so like emptied. Like, I don't have this. And I was just praying. And I just felt like the one thing that I always make we've seen miracles. I've also prayed for people and I've seen nothing happen. Like, it's not about me. I'm not the one that does that. It's God, right? So whatever happens, God, I just want to be your hands and your feet. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to tell them you love them. Like, I'm just going to be very practical about it. And everything else is just icing on the cake, right? Yeah. But the one thing I've always said is, anybody that comes up to me, I'm going to lay hands on them and I'm going to pray for them. And so that first trip, I just remember people like lifting up their, like showing me like skin falling off of them. And I'm like touching their head. And I'm just like, God, help me, whatever this is. I don't like, who knows? Maybe it's nothing contagious. I don't know.
Yeah. Doctor. Literally, I have no idea.
I mean, I'd stayed in a Holiday Inn, but I'm not a doctor, right? But I'm like, God, I don't want somebody to come up to me, ask for prayer, and I go, ugh. Like, man, how humiliating would that be? So I'm like, God, I'm going to pray for everybody that comes up to me. And then one of the most impactful pieces, we talked about this last night, was we feed everybody. So imagine never having a good meal. And we literally, our church over there, so we can get into the school church piece or whatever, the rest of the stuff that we do, but our church over there is the hardest work. They never sleep. They never, like, if we do it, so every year we do an event, like 10 to 12,000 people, we do a Christmas event for slaves. Our church cooks everybody food. Like, we have 900-ish people that go to our church. They cook everybody food. Like, it's in these huge, I mean, it's just the operations and how they serve people is crazy. Jeez. So when we're at these brick kilns, you guys are going to experience this, these big tubs with like those styrofoam Chinese containers, just tons of them. And they're just like walking in, and we're like going like this. And so the team will get mad at me because there'll be like people like stuffing them like in their shirts. And I know that they took one, and I'm like, take another one. The team like, Brother Brandon, there's not. I said, there's enough food. I told you guys to cook extra. Yeah. It's fine. And then you get to watch these kids be like, and they're eating, and it's a rice with a little vegetables and sometimes a little bit of meat. That's it. And it's like the best meal it's the most food they've ever had. Jeez. They're like licking like a kernel, like a little bit of rice, like it's crazy. And to see the joy. So part of it is everybody, like, it's cool. The miracles are fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But in practical situations, to be there to tell them that God loves you and to feed them, mission accomplished.
Yeah, literally.
We love you.
They've never had an advocate before.
You've been praying. We came here.
Yeah.
We visited this random brick kiln, probably because of your prayers. Yeah. Keep praying. God loves you. Yeah. And we feed them. And it's just you want to talk about a perspective shift? Yeah. When I come back to the States, and like my kids hate it because they're like complaining, I'm like, don't you complain, you're eating tonight. Like, they go through the worst stuff, but here's the weird thing. Like, I can't imagine going through what they go through, and you talk to them and they're like happier than we are. Yeah. It just messes with you. Cause I'm like, what are you so happy? I remember there was this family. I don't think I've ever told you this story. There was this family. I remember talking to this older woman, and I said, and she was probably, I mean, again, sometimes you're like, wait, you're only 60, you look 80. Yeah. Life has not treated you well, obviously. Yeah. And I just remember this lady going, I'm good. Save the money. Like, she's part of the family. And she goes, don't worry, grab somebody else. Like, spend your, and I said, I was like, pause. I've never heard something like that before. I said, why did you say that? Like, and so through an interpreter, I'm talking to her, and she said, he died for me. She's a slave, dude. He died for me. I don't need anything else. You want to talk about, everybody thinks, oh, you're so cool. You have all this faith. You want to talk about getting slapped in the face? Because I don't have faith like that. I tell people all the time, people think I have some sort of, I don't. Like, I have time. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't have all this faith. The only thing I say I do have is I have a pretty quick yes. So if God says something, I'm like, okay, I'll go. I don't think about it. It drives my wife's nuts sometimes, because that's my personality. But these people are like, no, like I'm good. And I'm like, what do I have to complain about?
Yeah.
Like we're in a cool podcast
studio, nice AC
latte. I got a bottle of water here.
It's not going to destroy your stomach.
1 second. Let me figure out whatever I need to figure out. Like, what do I have to complain about at all? And so that's the thing where, you hear this all the time and it's like very cliche to say like, I've learned more from them than, that type of thing. I have. I've seen a love. That's why I said like the country itself and even the government people that we work with and the police have been fantastic partners. And I heard every horror story you could hear. Oh, you will hate Pakistan. I don't. Now, granted, the food can make you got to be careful, because it'll get you sometimes. But in reality, like on a serious note, it's like the people have been fantastic. Now, there's certain people that don't like us, and I get that, and they think I'm here to like ruin their business. I'm not. I just don't think people should be owned. Like, I'm sorry, I don't. But in reality, the police have been some of the greatest. We have the most fantastic partnership with the police officers there. They've been fantastic. They've been so courteous to us, and I tell them that. I'm like, thank you so much for everything that you've done, and probably helps that I'm American. I get that. But on the flip side, they're like, we don't like this either, but like, what can we do? And so, they protect us, they take care of us. The government has been extremely gracious. There's certain things I'm not going to talk about. They've asked me not to. And so they've kind of given us these parameters. Please don't do this. And we go, okay. And so again, I'm not here to do anything other than help these people. And I want to be the greatest partner. Honestly, and I don't know the history. We, talked a little bit last night about like the Korean Peninsula and stuff like that. And South Korea is now this great manufacturing thing. Like, I look at Pakistan, they have some of the most amazing workforce. Like the FIFA soccer balls were made there. Like they have leather, all that type of stuff. And I'm sitting there going, man, honestly, I see Pakistan as being this manufacturing hub someday that like they already do. But like the people are such hard workers. They're so fantastic. And so it's like, I look at it now and I say, I'm like the preconceptions that I had, and even the government officials like tell people in America, come visit. And I'm like, well, I do, but it's like, it's true.
Sounds
it's
crazy. Yeah.
They're just, what you will see is that honestly, it's some of the most beautiful people, and people are like, well, what about the Muslims? Well, almost all of them are. Yeah. They're so gracious. Like and we talked about last night, if you say something like, man, that ice cream looks good, like they'll run and go get you ice cream. Like they're so hospitable.
No, they can't afford it. Yeah.
No. And like, if you watch food bloggers that go to India or Pakistan, like that region of the world, they're some of the most hospitable people you've ever met in your life. Like when you go out to eat and just different things. And they're like, honestly, the Pakistani people are just beautiful people. And they've gotten a bad rap. And I'm not saying anything's perfect. I'm not saying America's perfect. Yeah. But I'm just saying the people in general, it's like when you go out there, you're like, we have just an odd perspective because we don't go outside of our borders. When you go outside, almost every country, the people are awesome. Yeah. Like governments don't like each other. That's fine. But like the people, like the people are great. And so for me, it's been this amazing learning opportunity. And there's certain aspects, we don't tell the people that are coming, but like at the end of their meals, they have this like stuff that looks like birdseed. And you're like, take this, it's good for your stomach. And you take it and it's like the most disgusting stuff ever. One of my favorite parts on a trip is like, everybody, this is like how they do things here. So you got to put it in there. And they go, and then they'll look at me and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I just wanted you guys to do that. So, but it's like, you're going to love it. And again, the miracles, all that type of stuff is awesome. But in reality, what it is how, and for anybody that's listening, I think we complicate things too often. And again, in the beginning, I was like, could we get 100 people? Yeah. Well, in January, we saved 2,552 in January of this year. Jeez. 1 month. So crazy. Don't ask me how. I mean, I know how, but I don't know how it's done. Like God's doing whatever he's doing. But in reality, I think it's like, you've always heard like, do the next thing that's in front of you. That's what we've kind of done. And we do our best to be conscious about the resources and all that type of stuff. But in reality, you're just sitting here going, I never thought this was possible. And so somebody that's listening is like, man, I feel called to whatever. I did not know anyone in Pakistan. Yeah. I didn't know how this was going to work. And God lines up all of these things because he wants to set them free more than I do. And so for anybody that's listening, like, I get it. We talked last night. It's like, how financially does this work? I don't know. It just does. And so, I would encourage people that are listening to be obedient. And my whole thing is, I'm not saying Exodus is the thing that you have to get involved in. God's going to call us each individually. You know, maybe you give to us, but maybe there's something that he wants to do in Minneapolis through you.
Yeah.
And you go, I could never. Well, I hope my story is like, they go, well, if he can do it, that idiot from Iowa could do it, I mean, I could definitely do something in Minneapolis. That's not that far of a stretch. And so I just think in reality, I think we see all the stories and all this type of stuff. And it's like, wow, I can't believe. Just go serve somebody. Yeah. Go love on them. Serve a meal to somebody. It's a big deal. And that's all God wants.
Yeah. You know, I think, one aspect of it, which we'll get into how you guys can partner and participate. But I think the second part of it is being yielded to the Holy Spirit.
For sure.
Especially living in America where we have a lot of things at our fingertips. We trust in ourselves more than we trust in God.
Yeah.
So we ask ourselves, how come we don't see the things happen in the Bible? Is because we'd never give God a chance to be able to do the things that those people relied on him for. And so it's crazy that it's not about, everybody assumes, like I assume sometimes, that it's gifts and it's skills that make me successful, and you start leaning on the flesh rather than trusting in the Spirit 100%. To be able to equip you. And God showed me this one time, that as I progressed in ministry, and now I have some skill sets like video for one of these things, and I've grown versus when I first came in. And he always reminds me of my prayer that I said, like, God, if you don't show up, I'm going to look like an idiot. Amen. That was constantly my prayer, because I'm like, God, I don't belong here. I feel super underqualified. I was insecure. These people know what they're doing. I don't know. Yes, I'm only here on a yes. And God's like, Alex, I never wanted you to graduate or mature out of that. You were 100%. Always supposed to be dependent on me. And if the skills are becoming an issue, like, might let you fail a couple of times because you were never meant to graduate dependence on me. And I hope listening and hearing Brandon's story, that's one of the other tidbits, not only the mission that they're doing, that God would begin to do a work in your life where it's not intellect, it's not skill set or gifting. It's a surrendered heart saying, God, like, where you want me to go, like, here I am, send me. What would it be? It's not what I can do. It's, Lord, what do you want to do through me? So how do they partner with you? I know we talked about setting a slave free. Like,
and I can touch real quick on the school and real quick. So we have a 3 kind of pronged approach. So the basis for what we do, no matter, 10 years down the road, the foundation of what we do is setting slaves free. We free slaves. Like that's what we do. That's what we're always going to do. But through the progression of this, so I always, talk about, I didn't start this, like, this is God's thing. But even before me, Simon, who runs stuff over there, his father started a small little school, had a dream, God said, sell everything. He was a teacher in Pakistan. He ended up teaching people that became parliament members and successful people. Like, a foundation was laid long before me. And God loves that country long before I even thought I would go there. Right. So that being said, he started this kind of school, and, we've seen that, we did an expansion. So now we have a new church, and, they pack people in, like, in church and everything. And so our school has slowly grown, and we did another, like, we bought a car, and so we have a garage, and we went back this last trip or 2 trips ago, and there was a classroom in the garage. And I was like, hey, like, this is our garage. What's going on? And they're like, well, we have a wait list of kids. Now they're slave kids. We have Muslim kids that want to go to our school and stuff, because we have a good school. We teach, we have great teachers, And so the last trip I went, there was 2 classrooms in this garage, and I make a joke to Simon's dad, Malik. I said, if there was a cupboard in here and I opened it, I wouldn't be surprised if I found a kid inside. And his whole thing is he can't say no to people. So we have a little over 600 kids that currently go to our school. We have all these teachers, all this type of stuff. And then on top of our school, we have, like, some apartments. So Malik will find people that are homeless, and then we give them free stay on top of it. And so what we found out is that education, wherever you go in this world, education is the greatest equalizer. Now, obviously God can do whatever, but in the natural, education, being able to read and write is the greatest equalizer wherever you are at in the world. And so part of our push forward is really this education piece. And so we've got our school education, you got the foundation, obviously, setting slaves free, and then the other piece is the church. Now, we have a fairly large church given the demographics of the country, and people are like, why do you want a strong church? Our church is really the hands and feet.
Yeah.
I'm not there. They are.
Yeah,
and so they're doing all of the stuff. They're cooking the meals. They're doing all this. I mean, we've got, 20 staff members now and all this type of stuff. And it's like, wow, how do you pay for that? It's like $2,420 a month for all of our staff. Like, other than land and windows, we were joking last night, those are super expensive over there. And then now God's birthed this kind of dream in us, and we have a land under contract where we're going to build a new school. School will be the phase one. We're going to have 1,200 kids at the school. It'll be a pretty large school. It'll be about $6,000 a month to run 1,200 kids. And that's transporting them and feeding them. Like, it takes care of everything, which is like just 1,200 person school, $6,000. Like, that's crazy.
Wild.
Then we'll build a new church. It'll make it a little bit bigger, but we're focused on empowering other people to run their churches because, we know what God's called us. And then we'll have a few kind of apartment buildings that we want to build on site. And those apartments are going to be for like the person that is the grandma that has 7, like, hey, why don't you stay inside our campus? You have to pay a small little, like, nominal rent, right? Because we want you to, this is how get them acclimated. This is what it's going to be like, but we can onboard some of the more, so like, I'll give you an example as long as we got time. Yeah. There was so people listening here, Levi Spangrud. So Luke, his brother, I'm friends with him. And so Luke, we were on a trip, and all of a sudden we're at a brick kiln, and this person walks in, and I'm looking at, and over there, it's like girls and boys, they don't like here, you're like, oh, is that a girl or boy sometimes? And it's like over there, it's like very clear, right? And girls sit on one side of the church, boys sit on the other. It's very, and I looked at this, like this young person that walked in. She was, I don't know, like 14 or something. And I was like, it kind of looks like it looks like a girl, but they have a boy haircut. And I was like kind of surprised. I was like, I've never seen that before. And so I was like, I looked at our team, and Luke was looking, and we're like, there's a story here. And she was walking in, she was carrying a young boy who, I think we later found out, he had suffered from polio. So he couldn't walk. And so I was like, we were like, hey, what's the story here? We got to find out. There's a story here, and God highlighted them. So we go down, somebody else is preaching. So we go down there, and we find out both of her parents have died. I'm pretty sure she was, I think she was 14. Now she's got a brother with polio, and I think another. I don't want to. I'm guessing he was autistic. I don't know if he was verbal, nonverbal. I don't know, but I think he was autistic or something like that. And then she had a couple other siblings. So there's like 5, 6 siblings, and she's the eldest of that group with no parents. They still have to make the bricks, and they can't. Because there's a bunch of little kids and polio, like there's just no way that they're going to make the quota of bricks. And so she worked it out with the slave owner that she goes to town every night, and she loads trucks through the night as a 14-year-old little girl by herself. And she said, I cut my hair like this and I dress like a boy because I don't want anything bad. I'm trying to prevent bad things from happening to me.
Yeah, taking advantage of.
And so I'm sitting there going, that young girl, we luckily found a distant, like an aunt. We connected them and like figured it all out. But if we couldn't have found other family members to take them in, we're not freeing them to have her live on the streets. Yeah. So when people are like, why do you need apartments there? That story.
Yeah.
She should, a 14-year-old little girl. Now, granted, I know she's been doing it. No, you're going to go to school.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're not going to have to pay rent. We're going to cover that. Don't worry about this. And we're going to make sure you and your sisters and brothers graduate from high school. And then in reality, the campus and then the thing that we're going to do, and it's crazy, land there is like crazy expensive. But that campus project is going to facilitate really something I think in the country that's never been done before and really push us forward. We're going to do clean water through there. Water over there is really bad. And I had a leader come up to me, and he's like, kind of questioning me, who are you going to serve in our community? And we're in a pretty large town over there, a couple million people. And I said, everybody. And he's like, so anybody can come get clean water from you? I said, that's the plan. Yeah. And he's like, and you'll be doing medical stuff? And I said, yeah, I was thinking like once a month we could have maybe a clinic or do something, obviously as funds and stuff like that. And he goes, who gets access to that? And I go, everybody. And I said, I'm going to serve this city. I want to be the greatest partner. And 98% of everybody we're going to see is Muslim. And I don't care. I hope they come to us for their clean water for free. Here's clean water for you. I hope our wells become those. And he was like, whatever you need, I've got your back. He was a leader in the community.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting here going, this thing I think will become a blueprint probably, and maybe we'll do a couple, across the country. But in reality, this seems, you want to talk about a goal we were talking about the other day of like, hey, or maybe it was someone else was talking about like God gives you a dream. Yeah. And then sometimes we feel like it's so far away, but it's so close kind of thing. And I said, well, sometimes, at least for me, the gap between the dream actually keeps getting bigger and bigger for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I still have this massive gap, but if I go backwards, I remember I was having a couple weeks back, I was just having like, we were on just before we started recording this. I got a call. There's a court case.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, how much is this going to cost us to go do this and to provide justice for these people? There's always something like that that's happening. And so sometimes you're like, where's the money going to come in? Like, and God's going to always take care of it. I know that, but sometimes I just get like frustrated. Like, how am I supposed to do this? I can't blast this all over social media. I can't, I'm just very protective of the mission. And I went back to this church where I got saved, and I was just telling the pastor, and he goes, remember when you got saved and where you were? I said, yeah, I remember that. I was right there. And he goes, why don't you go back there and remember how far you've come? Because we've been doing this for 3 years. And go back to when I remember it was 303 people we did this year. Wow. Mm-hmm. We never thought that was possible. And so now when these big things happen, and I'm sitting here going, we got $800. Like one of my board members made a joke. He's like, man, I can't wait till somebody writes you $1 million check. And I go, why? And he goes, because in the next meeting, you're going to have a plan to spend $1 million. And I said, yeah. Here's the thing. This is the tough thing. It's kind of crazy to think about. We're not here to save. Like, we want to be prudent with our resources. Like, I get all that. And we want to plan out. We've got people now that rely on us for their jobs and all that type of stuff. But in reality, you think about a large savings account. I can go grab people out of slavery.
Yeah. Why do you want to save? Yeah.
So one of our board members sometimes like, yeah, why don't you just tell the families, don't worry, we'll get you in a couple months. We just really would like to have this saved up. It makes us feel more comfortable. You can't say that to people.
Yeah.
Now, so it's one of those things where you have to be prudent, but we also we have a mission to accomplish. And you know what? God always brings resources, right? Just full disclosure, we have like $500,000 that needs to come in before October. So in a couple months that we don't have for the phase 1 of this land. And people are like, are you good? I'm like, we don't have that. It could come in the last day, or the landowner could have a dream and give I don't know, but this is God's dream. This isn't mine. And so I just foresee, I think this education piece and our push, phase 1 is going to be building this school out. And I'm just like, you're going to see this. One of the highlights of the trip will be walking into our school. You're going to see, it's the cutest. It's K through 12. Like, so there's they're all in their little cute little uniforms, 600 of them cheering. And it's like, it's the coolest thing you've ever seen. And my whole thing I was like, man, I wish we could have more schools. Like, they're learning how to read. And the crazy part from an American standpoint, you go in the classrooms and it's like these, 5th or 6th grade classroom, and they're learning stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know the stuff that they're learning. Like, they were doing chemistry, you know how you do like I was like seeing on the board, I'm like, dude, I don't even remember this.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like this chemistry. It's like this, they were middle schooler. The stuff that they're learning, like the educational standard that our teachers, it's crazy, the stuff like learning English and they Urdu, multiple language, and they're just kids. And I'm like, this is crazy. So what I get really excited about that I never thought was going to happen was the school piece. And you're going to see that, and you're going to be like, wow, it's just like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if you guys are listening right now, if you want to participate with that, let God speak to your heart. At the end of the day, man doesn't provide, God does. But if God is speaking to your heart right now and you're like, man, like I want to do something with this. Don't wait. Coming from a procrastinator, you need to do it now because you're going to forget about it. And so be obedient to what God is calling you to do, whether that's freeing a person. You're like, you know what? I'm going to send over $300, or maybe it's, you got the resources. You're like, I was talking to some friends of mine who I was telling them the mission and everything. They're like, $300, that's nothing. Mm-hmm. Like, I can do this. And they just kept like going. I'm like, sure. Like, you move like that. Yeah. So maybe it's, you want to set like a family free, and was that like $2,100?
Family 7, like $2,100.
Yeah. $2,100. You were like, you want to set a family free. If you want to participate and do that. How would we do it where, because I'm going to release this podcast before we go over there. Obviously, they can continue to give, and I'll link your site. But so the money that we raise, where we go over there, we're going to spend it. So if you want to give towards our trip and what we do at Bethel's Rock, maybe I just put in the PushPay link. So then
to your guys' website. Fine.
So I'll put the PushPay link in our website, and in the memo, just put Alex Preston. It'll go towards the trip where we are going to go over there. I'm going to be taking footage and pictures of literally everything that we have raised. It's going to literally just set people free. So if you want to be a part of what we're going to do here in the upcoming future, obviously I can't be specific about the date. That's why I'm saying that. You can do that by going in the links, and I'll also link Brandon's website down below so you can learn more. And maybe it's like, hey, my business, we want to become a partner with this, like moving forward, or we want to go above and beyond with that. But just letting you know, everything that we raise, where we go here in the coming future, is going to go to set slaves free. And I'll be able to bring back that footage and show you what you guys did when you supported this mission. So it's pretty cool. Unlike something that's so far off and we don't know where it's going, we will literally be able to show you what your resources did by setting these families free. So,
and the cool part is like, and we talked about this last night. So let's say you guys can raise 20, 30,000. And we're obviously going to bring money to the table too, because that's what we do, right? And so the commitment, the coolest part about all of this stuff, it's so cool to see, is the money you guys raise. It's not like, hey, next year we're gonna, and maybe blah blah blah. It's like, so you guys raised 35,000. Hey, I'm going to show you, and we're physically going to see every single person. You can do the math. Like I'll show you. Like, you're going to be there. And so it's like, somebody was like, what if 100,000 comes in for a trip? We're going to spend 100. Now, the most we've ever done, it was like 90 some thousand. Like it was crazy. Like so many people setting free. So it was like awesome. But to your point, like if somebody wants to give to the Bethel's Rock trip, whatever that amount is, you're going to video this. So if they follow you or whatever, they're going to see you go there, and you're going to have videos of every single family that we set free. And it's literally like, here's your money. Yeah. Here's where it went.
And this is literally the
we're not buying a Lambo. Yeah. We're not flying around, and like, it's literally all of that money. Now, if somebody gives $1 million, I'm like, we might have to take a couple trips to spend it. But it's like, hey, we're going to grab people, and we're going to free people. We're going to do this. We're going to go do services. We're going to feed people that their best meal they've ever had, all of that stuff. And then, kind of through that, you can go on the website, and there's a contact form thing. You put in your email, and like once a month, I usually kind of do like an update or whatever. And then for other people, it's like, we've got some big visions, and I think God wants to do some pretty amazing things there. And so, prayer is a really big deal, really spreading the mission, word of mouth. And then, it's obviously resources, but I'm excited for you to go, because it's one thing where people are like, is this really real? Yeah. Because it seems so crazy,
it's
right?
Insane.
Until you go there and you're like, I grabbed a person and took care of them for 6 months, and it was like my cell phone bill almost.
Yeah. It's just wild, dude.
Like the stuff that we spend money on, and I was guilty of it and still sometimes am, too. It's like, man, the amount of impact that we can have, other than land and windows, those are expensive over there. Like the amount of impact that we can have, like on a person
free.
And crazy. Oh, by the way, the meals that we do roughly, this is crazy. So we can hold services, and our services that we'll do, it's roughly $1 a person. To host the service, to the speakers, to set up the stage, like everything that we do at the brick kiln, and to feed them a meal, it's roughly about $1. So it's like on this trip, like I told you, I was like, we're going to feed meals to everybody we preach to. That's like a non-negotiable. We feed everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like the most amazing thing. And then if somebody's like, I want to give 25,000. Okay, let's go. Yeah. You're going to see. And so like I would, if they want to contact you, it's like, hey, if you want to give a sizable amount towards this trip, I'd challenge you to put Alex and say, hey, if I give you this, I'd like to meet with you. I want to see the video. Yeah. Like, okay, sure. Well, there's nothing to hide here.
Yeah. Right? I have people that had reached out to me, and you had actually mentioned this, like, hey, give them like a framed picture of some of the families that we free. And so I told that to someone that wants to give a sizable donation. I'm like, bro, I'll bring that back to you. Like, I'm taking photos regardless, but I'll be able to give that to you to be like, hey, this is what you did. Thank you. Like, these are this is the evidence of what.
Yeah. And we were there,
did.
And it wasn't like I heard that they were set free. No, we were there.
We participated.
We walked into their homes.
Yeah.
They packed everything. We got into vans, and then we went to their new home. Like, it's not one that, like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You're going to be there and you're going to see. I remember one of our board members, he goes like on all the trips with me. I just remember the first trip before he was a board member, he's like, I want to see everything. I go, you can see whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so we were over there and he's like, can I go in that? I was go in there. I don't care. And he would go into like slave houses and whatever. And he just wanted to see everything. And he's like, this is crazy. This is real. And so kind of like what I told you, I was like, you're going to see like freedom hit people's faces for the first time. Sometimes we'll like walk back like with the family. It depends on where we're at and just different logistic things, but we'll like walk with the families back to their homes and they pack up their few things that they have. And then we bring vans and we load them in, and and the kids are just like, this last trip, when I told you this story, we're driving in a van. We had a slave family with us in the van. They've never left the brick kiln. And we ended up cutting through kind of like this hoity-toity, like Muslim, high-end, like gated community type of thing to get to where we were going. And one of the guys like, Brandon looked back at them. And they were looking out the window like this. They've never seen houses like that. They've never seen cars like that. And you're sitting there going, they've never been to a grocery store. Like everything is a first. And so you're physically, like that's the cool part. Like if you're hearing this and you're partnering, like they're going to be so jealous of what you get to experience. Yeah. And so our goal is, and with you going there and capturing all this media, is to say, here it is. Like we're going to show you as best of our abilities. We're going to show you hope hit their faces. Yeah. We're going to show you the family being like, we're going in it. Like they're getting in a van together. And oh, by the way, it's 1 billion degrees. This is called air conditioning, guys. Yeah. Because all the Americans like flip on the air conditioning. It's so hot. And it's like, we're going to give them bottles of water. We're just going to love on them. And then we're going to get them to their houses. And oh, by the way, we'll hold a church service and they'll show up at our church service for the first time as freed people. You'll connect with, there's going to be so many people we set free, but you're going to connect to certain families and things like that. And then we'll be worshiping in our church, and you're going to see them in the crowd worshiping for the first time being freed. Not something like Brandon told me about. You're going to see it. Yeah. So that's a really cool thing for people because here's in all reality, there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of things. I am so grateful for what God has given me in this mission, us being so effective and efficient with what we do. Like it's crazy that what we can do. You're not going to like hear about it on TikTok and whatever. Yeah. You're going to see it firsthand. And it's like the coolest thing. And then being able to bring, like we had a fundraiser in this like second grade class raised. Like they'd raised like $300 on something. They partner with us and they raised $13,000 like in this bake sale. And he's like, I saw these videos, like a little girl's like, Grandpa, slavery's wrong. Will you, so the grandpa would show up and buy a loaf of bread for like $200, stuff like that. Yeah. Anyways, one of the guys whose son was in that class, he went on the trip with me. And so we kind of said, hey, when we come back, let's do a presentation. So-and-so's dad that's in the second grade class, he's like, my dad went. And so his dad gets to come and then me and him do a presentation. And so it's like for you, it's like if somebody's like, I want to give a big amount because this is crazy that this happens. But will you come back? And it's like, yeah, I'll bring back the videos. I'll show you what we did. Yeah. Oh, by the way, like literally before I came to meet you yesterday, there's a partner up here that lives about 40 minutes away. That's been just an amazing partner for us. And I just randomly dropped off some framed pictures, 8x10s of some families and some candid photos and wrapped them in like a bow with a card and just said, thank you for partnering with us. And it's like, these are the people you freed.
Yeah. It's just like, so crazy.
And so like literally some of the people, like I'll go into their offices and stuff. And some of the people like our person that does our accounting, our CPA, I said, thank you so much for being an amazing partner to our organization. You walk in her office and there's this beautiful little slave girl smiling. Like it's the most beautiful photo you've ever seen. And I'm like, thank you for partnering like with us. You help us with the accounting. Like I couldn't do that. And so thank you so much and so you get to share these keepsakes. And so for me, what it does is when I see that on the wall, I go, man, God, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. But also it's like, man, I'm so blessed to live here. Yeah. God, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. And so it's kind of this way of grounding. And then the thing with you is that you're going to have like stories with these specific Luke, we talked about before. We were at a brick kiln. I just remember I like looked over and he was holding this little girl. Like, and I'm like, whose whose baby is that? And he goes, I don't know. And she just held on to him the whole time. And he's just holding her, and he started crying. He was crying because he's got little kids, and she just has mud all over her hands from this little girl, like 2-year-old little girl, from making bricks. And it's one of the most precious, we have the photo of him holding her, and it's like the most beautiful. So there's going to be moments with you and these people and the people that we're bringing where like God just like does something so beautiful and so special. And it's like their eyes, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like, wow, God. And you guys are photography people. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, oh, look at me. And because of your lens and your eye for something, you're going to capture these moments that, like, we're working right now. I don't know when it's going to be released on like a large coffee table book. It's like we have like some of the photos we have, they're like, so many people are like, this is like National Geographic type photos. It's crazy. And so we're working right now on a coffee table book. I don't know, maybe it's a year. I don't know how, but it's like this, I want to make this big, like just really nice book where it's like $300. You buy the book and you set a person free. And crazy. So it's one of those books where it's like, but it's the saddest story you've ever heard, but this is hope. And these are the people, everybody that we show you, all the photos, they were in slavery, but every single person in that book, they've been freed. It's like such a cool thing.
So cool. Yeah. So if you guys want to do that, all the links will be in the description. I'd encourage you participate if God's been moving on your heart right now. And you could reach out to me too if you have a sizable donation or you want to figure out how to set something up with me to meet and talk more about this and what we're going to do here as we go over there and take a trip. You can do that. You can email me at pastoralex@bethelsrock.org. It's pastoralex@bethelsrock.org. But all the ways you can contact me, be able to donate towards the trip, or to get connected with Exodus 51 just for a future ongoing partnership. I'll have all of those links in the description. Brandon, I want to say thank you for coming and being on the podcast. And I pray, as always, that this blessed you guys and God's doing something in your heart, not just financially to give to this organization, but where you'd have a surrendered heart and just give God your yes, because you have no idea what your yes could do when God is working in your life. So we love you guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future videos that we post. We love you. We'll see you next time.